Or to you.
Oh, no, I'm giving it all to Eric.
There you go.
Okay, we started the recording. So, hello, I'm Noel Schultz from Washington State University, and welcome to the CySER virtual seminar. Today's speaker, oops, sorry, we got bings happening all along here. I think Eric's having some issues.
Yeah, he's going in and out, I think.
Yeah. I'll let Gabriel deal with that, or Asifa. So today we have a presentation on CyberHawks and Beyond from Columbia Basin College, and our speaker is Matt Boehnke. Sorry, all those we have background in there of all the people being admitted, and he's an associate professor in cybersecurity department at Columbia Basin College in Pasco, Washington. He's the first director of cybersecurity department and is responsible for the development and integration of the first ever community college level curriculum with real world applications of cybersecurity to the classroom. He's established initial and ongoing relationships with U.S. Department of Energy and national laboratory partnerships, as well as academic advisory groups, and is also a U.S. veteran, and as well as a state legislator. So Matt wears multiple different hats. Matt, I'll turn it over to you and Eric Robinson to give us your talk.
Great, thanks, Noelle. And hi, everybody. My name is Matt Boehnke. Like you said, cybersecurity assistant professor, and was for the last 6 years the lead in the cybersecurity department at Columbia Basin College, along with Eric Robinson today. So he's my big counterpart. We wanted to dive into really focusing on what we're going to be doing as part of the cyber program, but as part of our thing is really focusing on the CyberHawks, where our program came to and how we developed into the winning team that we have that's been ranked nationally across the board. With that, we took kind of the normal CySER operation in the organization. You can see the stars are kind of highlighting the areas of our focus. Of course, curriculum development and what we've kind of built on. And as CBC is pretty much developed more of the pathways with the University of Washington, no offense, go Cougs. But we were developing that along with our NIST compliance or NSA Center of Excellence, as well as our NICE framework. Along with that, we had our outreach with our internship programs that we've developed over the years with Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, as well as a lot of the Department of Energy and the Department of Ecology subcontractors that are out here at Hanford. And then afterwards, I'll turn it over to Professor Robinson, and he'll take it from there and work on that research and development piece. So you can see a little bit about the background, then into that student competition to the internships. So we were started in 2014, so I want to kind of set the stage here. We haven't been around that long. And even 2014, we were one of only 3 community colleges in the state to offer up a Bachelor's of Applied Science program. We currently now have grown that into short-term or 1-year certifications, along with, of course, our existing 2-year AAS. To build on to that BAS in cybersecurity, we've developed that BAS in information technology. We're currently working on into that cloud services community, the data analytics, and really that information sharing, that information analytics structure. We are endorsed by the Career Connect Washington and the Career Launch Program, which gives us that really edge, I believe, into our community, into the environment that we serve the Hispanic serving institutions that we are today. From our initial setup, the first class, literally, we had 4 people graduating. By 2017, we had 28, and it continues to grow at an ever increasing rate that we can't believe how much success we've been having over the years. And of course, at that time, we worked hard and with our staff and our colleagues, obtained that certification in the National Center of Academic Excellence. So we are a CAE 2Y certification community. CyberHawks was developed from students who really cared about trying to go the extra mile. We're trying to set people up for success to where they can hit the ground running on day one in that job placement, in that internship. Part of our deal is making sure we want to make sure our students are prepared to be inflexible, to be adaptable, to have that professional demeanor, not only in the technical field, but also into the soft skills that helps us win not only in the day today, but also helps explain into the CEO, CIO, into that C-suite structure of what leadership can be and how do we make that decision-making process that much easier and that much better with the data we have today. As you can see here, this is our winning team from 2016. So you can see from 2014 to 2016, we had a huge leap from pretty much nowhere, our basic ground fundamental school of just starting the program, to a winning program to where we're ranked 7th in the nation, gone up to a lot of people around the globe. Even heralded from our Tri-City local media that a lot of the vigilance, they interviewed the team, and even the diversity we had in our community was one of the outstanding ways that we set ourselves above the rest of the teams at this time. But a really particular was the soft skills. We had individuals within the competitions and others throughout that really knew how to step up, and that it was one person was down, we had another one step up. We were interviewed by CEOs. We were simulated by the different tactics and procedures that the FBI and others are trying to, throw our kids off, and they just hung tough and succeeded. And it was a really proud day to me for that. When we met the national office of Dwayne Williams back in the day, he always said, how do you prepare for the competitions? Always prepare for the basic fundamentals. And he mentioned these in an article a couple years ago called the Basic 13. Sadly, I would say I stole this from my military experience, and this is where Deborah probably come in and laugh as well, because this is what we were doing as military officers that are trained to understand 90% of any successful operation is the planning and preparing for that operation, and then training to that, rehearsing these different areas, understanding the different battle drills that we would do. So we narrowed it down to the different events that you see today before our competitions, and started really training at our CyberHawk meetings once a week and sometimes on the weekends to do each one of these different events. Over the years, we had really good leadership from a diverse student body, and even at a 2-year college, we had a lot that would step up and start taking ownership and passion into each one of these to where we had subject matter experts. When we had the pre-event, we would go ahead and plan for that different event, depending on the different articles, what we had to do. But we'd understand the key situations where we'd gather the scenario, and where the scenario-based situation was set up, we would go out in our community, and in this case to Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and some of my graduates who'd already got jobs out there. And they would come in as subject matter experts and start teaching us some of the different areas within this. This led us to hardening of the critical services, the web application exploitations, and really understanding what we need to do in our environment. Our second phase was our limited resources we have at a community college. We're not one of the big schools, so we don't have buildings full of resources and then the infrastructure to go off of. So we've actually been leveraging the life cycle replacement at Pacific Northwest National Labs, where it actually is cutting edge to them. And when it flows out of life cycle, they turn it over to us to where we can then work on those same type of scenario and same type of critical resources that are out there. We simulate pipelines and SCADA systems, that integrated control systems that are out there. We simulate the nuclear environment where a nuclear power plant may be exploited, as well as a web application and compromising different networks. And another scenario we've adapted over the years is that social engineering, as we're seeing that more and more along with phishing attacks and ransomware to be in one of those critical things that are impacting our state. And if you haven't seen this morning, it was in the Tri-City Herald, they reran a article from the Seattle Times. The state of Washington has released the Attorney General report over the last 5 years and showcased one of the critical increases in cybersecurity attack at our state and local agencies. Locally around the Tri-Cities, we had the Port of Kennewick, as well as a couple others that were impacted in Benton County specifically. And it showed that we had over 45,000 people that had been exploited and then were compromised in the local area. So that's impacting at home. A lot of people think it never happened in your neck of the woods, but we want to make sure we stay on the cutting edge, train our individuals to what needs to happen, and get out in the community and make sure we have our skilled workforce out there to protect us. This includes also the physical attacks that may be out there. So you have to have that defense in depth, from the gates, the swipe card readers, the man traps, into the biometrics, or even the camera systems that we can integrate within our digital network as well as physical. And then, of course, how does the threat evade our current systems? We're looking at not only antivirus and malware, but going into that research and development, and what Professor Robinson will discuss as he's going into the future and the emerging up beyond. One of the critical things I always like to speak of is what are those soft skills that students need to learn? Because it's one thing to teach everybody the technical ideas of what happens in our environment, but it's another one to set things up for success is when you have a technical subject matter expert go in front of your CEO and explain it in a way that's very respectful, very understanding, and that it's critical to the points of understanding the decision that needs to be made with resources that are limited in any organization. One that is impactful now and into the future that you can grow a plan, whether it's the next 6 months to the next 12 months or into the next 2 or 3 years in a decision life cycle to go after that critical funding that we need to have to work with other agencies and combine our efforts in a local regionalized network of defense. And those are the soft skills we try to teach on, of course, not only writing papers, critical writing skills, but collaborating in a business acumen in our business department with other subject matter experts to support that business mindset that we have. And of course, the one thing of all military members, we're big into the after action review or that post event analysis. We really want to take it to heart to understanding what are those lessons learned, where we can adapt, even discussing what kind of injects or those events that occurred throughout this and how do we learn from these injects and these events. From those events will then turn into our next training cycle or that next training schedule. So that training schedule will then wrap right into our updated schedule for CyberHawks and our curriculum that we look at as a department as well. Some of our outreach is what Noel talked about before. We have a really good establishment because, of course, Dr. Ashby and former president of CBC, Rich Cummins, was one who started this from a program that said we need that skill set now. And this is in 2014. So I give them a bunch of credit to be visionaries, to understanding what the future is going to be like from 2021 and beyond. We've established a lot with Amazon in our local area and the distribution centers of how high tech skills need to be working in the logistics. And we've seen that in the last 12 to 24 months about the supply chain logistics issues that are impacting our community and around our globe. Of course, also Department of Energy and Ecology. I've listed out all the other main subcontractors that are there, plus several more that weren't even identified in here because they changed a little bit, but mainly with the Richland Operations Office, as well as highlighting the Hanford Mission Essential Services and the Mission Support Alliance. They focus a lot on that IT development of the infrastructure out there, what those skills are coming out of our communities that was needed the most. In our state agencies, we've been working a lot with Department of Commerce and the Port of Benton. We're developing a lot with this new rural broadband efforts that are coming out in our communities. And as well as, of course, we mentioned the nuclear, solar, and wind of the energy sector with Energy Northwest being one of the only Northwest power plants of developing and creating nuclear power, but then also that information grid that is so critical to keeping the lights on throughout the year. Locally, Richland, City of Richland, solar battery storage is another key one of that emerging technologies. We worked in the past with Darklight, Marcroft, and as well as I mentioned before, the ransomware attack of all. Then I'll turn it over to Professor Eric Robinson for the rest of this.
All right, thanks, Matt. First of all, can you hear me okay, Matt?
Yeah, loud and clear.
I had to join like 35 times. I felt like the student on the first day of school. And so I apologize to whoever the moderator was that had to let me in so many times. Technical issues, what can I say? My job is to give everybody an overview of our program. And Matt, you took a lot of my thunder, so I'll try to not repeat everything you just said. So CBC is not a research university. We are really focused on giving our students the skills they need to succeed in the real world. Not that that's not independent of research, but we try to blend research and operations together. So what you're seeing here in this table are the 5 upper division courses, 5 of the upper division courses, not the only 5 that our students take. And you can see a very deliberate intent on our part to give them operations work and research work. Additionally, we try to map our upper level courses into the CISSP domains, because what we have found is this has given them the background they need for when they get out in the real world and if they want to pursue a certification. A couple of the courses also offer additional certifications. So for example, the ethical hacking course does have a direct tie into the certified ethical hacker certification. Now over on the right, the ones in bold, I'm going to highlight a little bit more so you can get a feel for the type of research projects we give our students. Though, as I mentioned earlier, these are more research light. They're more applied research. And what we want to do is give our students a taste for something they might do in graduate school if they were to go on to WSU or a different university. And so in the operations piece, one of the most interesting projects that we have our students do, at least that's what we're told, is the full pen test. So in 440, we actually have them do a full pen test on a production network. Now this can be their own home network, probably less interesting, or a lot of them work out in the world and they actually do these projects on their work networks. So very practical real world experience that they use both in their job and for school. Are we doing questions as we go, Matt? Or are we doing them at the end? Any questions for me on the kind of the summary slide? I'll ad lib here, Matt. I'm ad libbing, going off script. No? Okay, next slide. This is an example of a malware infection project that we give our 320 students. I find this project really interesting. The students really love it because they do feel like they're doing cutting edge research. And so what they're given here is a real world data set that's been cleansed a little bit, but it shows endpoints and their various attributes. And then from their attributes, they need to craft an algorithm, a program, a recipe. Some way to solve this problem is, can they predict malware infections from a known data set? So this ties in a lot of what CySER is about in terms of its project scope. Data analysis, machine learning, a lot of them use cloud assets to solve these problems. And so it's a really nice way to tie in various security features. Next slide, Matt. This next one's similar. The students are given a set of risks and they are asked to do some optimization around these risks. And so a lot of interesting things can be taught here and applied here, again, related to the CySER work, data analysis, cloud computing, advanced machine learning type things. A lot of the students have not had much exposure to mathematical optimization, so this is a good project for them to sort of learn those fundamentals. They do it for this initial project, so what I'm asking for here is, as you can see, is there's a set of controls with a set of costs, and based on certain constraints, they have to optimize the controls that they're picking. Very reflective of a real world application, whereas you don't get to implement all the security features you want. You have to pick a select set. So this again allows them kind of a researchy feel to it, but at the same time, very practical in its application to the real world. Next slide. These areas in red are where we're going to use this CySER grant to enhance our program. So as you can see in each of these course areas, we've pulled out key fundamentals from the CySER work, and we're going to apply those in these course areas, both in theory, which is in the red letters there, and then in practice on the right side. So that's ongoing work that's being done now in terms of this grant. And I think that's all I had, Matt. I think we have a nice, beautiful question slide next. Yeah, thank you, then questions. And we would love to take questions from everyone.
Yeah, any questions you guys have?
Yeah, I have a question about how do you get students in your CyberHawks? How did you get the students involved in that? And how do you sustain it? One of the challenges with student activities and organizations is students come and go. And so how do you keep that going?
So pre-COVID, it was a lot easier, of course, than anything. We used to host twice a year an IT day on campus where we'd actually bring in K through 12 students that we'd help mentor, and we kind of showcase what we do at CBC. We do this in partnership with WSU Tri-Cities, and then we'd have local area representation from P&L, the MSA groups, the local banks, hospitals, other career fields that are out there to kind of showcase what you can do when you grow up, kind of the the day in the life of a cybersecurity person. And then that would help draw that in there. With COVID going on, we were kind of stagnant, like a lot of people, and kind of tough going through things, where we started hosting a lot of these like job fairs in virtual environment and hosting them online, to where we reached out to our K through 12 partners in the local area, started having some of that online. Most of this went back to recruitment at our 100, 200 levels. But as we have a running start, of course, students that jump on board, we heavily influence that on the days when our dean, and I've showcased some of her expertise of inviting us out to the, here's a day in the life of college, where we'd have blocks of information times as students are starting to come into campus or even online, and they want to learn about the different departments. So we'd have kind of like the divide and conquer thing. A couple of us were on a couple of those business meetings with business or arts or music, and then we would showcase what we were doing in the student area. And then all together with the ASCBC grouped us all at a couple of nights during the week that they would offer like a movie night. And we showcased some of the fun things we were doing online. And we had current students demonstrate some of the practical applications that Eric was talking about. We would run Wireshark on people's computers and showcase what we were seeing. And at first people didn't understand what that meant. And so then you kind of jazz it up to the Hollywood kind of thing. So we'd throw out movies, YouTube scenarios, and we had some people from P&L jump in there and kind of showcase like a Halloween theme thing, and then a Christmas and other holiday, how you can hack into things pretty quick. So once they got that framework, it seemed to light the fire with a lot of the students, and the word starting to get out to the K through 12 area, and they really appreciated that at all. And it seems to be helping a lot.
One thing I'd like to add, Matt, if I could, is our club, I think, is healthier than it's been in a long time. We struggled a little bit during COVID, and having a very strong president, which we do now, has helped immensely. So having a strong leader in the club, just even one individual, can pull everybody along and really, like Matt was talking about, get that kind of appeal to bring in the younger students and even the pre-college students.
I put in the chat the amazing video that Brendan made for to recruit.
Yeah, we had a great recruiting video done by our president. But like I said, we're, having a strong leader really has helped the club a lot. So if you're thinking, I know at WSU's thinking about reviving their club, that would be probably my recommendation, is find one strong, good student leader to help sort of spearhead that.
And Noel, we worked with a couple ideas of, again, military experience, is you partner with mentors who are in the community, and that helped us out a lot with internships, because we have a lot of students who graduated that are still around the local regional area. So I've asked them to kind of come back as well and be mentors. They offer up subject matter experts. They're actually topic presenters. We've had panels, different things like that, but it is key to have a couple strong influences in the community as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, could you stop sharing unless we're going to go back to your slides?
Nope, it's all yours.
Okay. Do we have any other questions in the chat? I don't see any in the chat right now. Other questions? Asfa, did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what Eric just said. If we are going to, and we will, revive, good, strong student clubs at WSU, how do you see play a good role in there? Is there a way, for example, to kind of, teach your experience or get to work with them remotely? Do you see a way for us to organize something like that where you could play a role, Eric?
I'm not sure I got the first part. It cut out on me.
So if we were to set up a good student club here and get them involved in competitions and the kind of things that you've done, but for WSU students, what would be a good way to organize? How would we leverage what you do? And could you envision yourself either remotely or in some other way take part in activities like that? That was my question.
I think, Matt, I think that would be great for everybody. That would be great for the students as well. A lot of our students have interest in WSU beyond CBC. The partnership together in terms of shared learning A lot of the club, you know, because the club meets weekly. And so if they're not preparing for competitions, they're learning new tools and skills, which again would transcend, you know, college or university. That's something everybody can learn. So yeah, I think we'd be really keen on sharing knowledge. Okay. For sure.
Do you guys add extra credit at all? Because that's what I'm involved in the DECA club in the business department, which is under me as well. And that's the only thing that seemed to work for us is to do extra credit.
We have about 25 students that are active right now, which again was, I think we were down to what, like 5 or 6, Matt, in the spring, and now we're back up. And again, a lot of it's our president, who unfortunately is graduating this quarter, so we're really going to figure out what we're going to do next. So.
Yeah, you get after 6 years, you get the ebb and flow of personalities depending on who's there, what's the strength. But yeah, no, extra credit is always a good thing. To Kyle's point, what we try to do is link that into the capstones. So when they're actually doing the hands-on, a couple of them might have done something similar. If they don't work in the industry, they'll leverage that into capstone, and we'll give them a little extra credit there, as well as the time when they're going to and from. We'll bring them back, and they'll be presenters at like our IT day or online day, or even helping recruit when we go out to the K through 12 community.
Yeah, Matt's referring to our capstone course, which is our 450. So the seniors have to do a full project, and so like Matt's saying, they can leverage club experience, club competitions, internships, whatever that might be for that project, that final term project.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I think it might be nice, and we have an example this Thursday. The Palouse local IEEE is doing a cybersecurity workshop with Cyber Empower that University of Idaho is doing. And I don't remember if we've sent it out to everybody or we will do that later today. But one of the things that would be really great is if your club is doing that and they're, you know, willing to, and you have some kind of a link, is for us to be able to share that across the team. Because one of the advantages that that you all have is really being in a very industry-rich environment where you have lots of industry around you. You know, we can obviously have SEL and some others, but I think it would be a win-win if we could find ways to share the webinars, the things we're doing with different organizations, the guest speakers we're having. We shared the SEL one earlier this semester, but I think if we just share those with each other, it enables us to have maybe more interactions than we might have if we pre-COVID. It would have been, you know, people are face to face, but you know, with WSU, particularly with 5 campuses, we're 5 physical campuses and global campus, we're trying to do more where we still have a component, an online component. So I think it would be great if we can continue to share those as you're having those, and maybe to Asifa's point is some of those early meetings that the WSU team could tag on to those, so that we could just see what you're doing and they can learn from a strong club, because I think that's one of the most important things is seeing, you know, the great thing is recycling and reusing those ideas and things that you all have done.
Yeah, one thing I don't want to miss here either is, and Matt's doing the recruiting here and doing a great job, is our 4 interns are coming from the CyberHawks club, because not only are they interns for the program, but they're our future leaders of the club. So there really would be a nice synergy, you know, if WSU kind of takes that same approach. Your 4 interns or whatever become the leaders of your club. That would be, I think, a win-win as well.
And can I pipe in real quick? Deb from CW. I know that I have my club president on as well, and he's one of our candidates for the CySER program. And we would love to, and I know I'm speaking on his behalf here, he can pipe in, but we'd love to be part of that too. Matt, you and I have talked about it before a couple times, you know, getting our clubs together, doing some more, you know, attack and defend together, and we could bring in WSU and maybe some of the other schools as well, because we all have such good, you know, such good students. They're so knowledgeable, and I know that we could impart more things share more things. So Noah, do you have anything to say?
Assuming you can hear me, it was kind of finicky. I was a little late. I was dealing with some issues getting here, specifically with the links and some, you know, it's okay. But yeah, absolutely. I totally resonate with that. That's what we're trying to do with the Cybersecurity and Ethical Hacking Club here at central, and absolutely, that's a thought I had just a moment ago as you guys were, speaking of the CyberHawk Club. It makes a lot of sense. We could pool resources, do projects. We could do multiple projects. There's no reason to put our eggs in one basket. I mean, it's an inter-university agency. It's very well.
So how do we do that? What's the next step so we actually make this thing happen, so to just talk about it?
Well, one of the easy ones is we can showcase the schedule of ours, and then we can start that integration between scheduling when we meet, just kind of the logistically side. And that's what Deb and I were talking about before. We met prior to COVID at being at, whether it's Cyberforce, PRCCDC, and a lot of these other competitions with U of I, Central, Eastern, ourselves. So we've gotten to know each other over the years. But yeah, I think it's just logistically scheduling time that we can plan out ahead of when these events are happening. Everybody kind of put it on the calendar, and then we can start, inviting people into it, and then really kind of a joint meeting together.
And yeah, you can do round robins and things like that each time, each month, maybe a club puts together some sort of event or some sort of training, opportunity so that they can learn something new, or they could do some sort of capture the flag with each other and whatnot. I know we have the cyber range, and Matt, I don't know if you've part of that whole talk with the Pisces and the cyber range, and they have all those computers. And I know that Vipul and Steve Stein and Mike Hamilton and things are wanting us to use it because it doesn't get as much, at least I don't think from my end. Maybe Eric Freithman from WWU is using it more, but that's a great, they have already labs built, and they have opportunities of a virtual environment. So.
Yeah, I'm still strong arming my dean, who's shaking her head. She's heard about it. I haven't had a chance to do that, but Deb, you're right. They got the resources, so why don't we tap into that? And I like the idea, like we're doing at CySER, just rotating it by college, just having people pick the next topic and kind of go around the room. That'd be great.
That would be easy for us to do, right? I mean, we meet every week. It's a Zoom session for CyberHawks. It would be trivial for like the 4th week of the month. We do something like that, or rotate around. I think that's a great
Eric,
idea.
last year you did that great lecture series. I wonder if you, when you have bandwidth again, which probably isn't now with CySER, Viceroy, but that was fantastic. And you had it 8 in the morning, which was tough. But I mean, I wonder if that's something that you could resurrect at some point and then invite the other schools.
Yeah, for sure. So what Kyle's referring to is we had external speakers from companies, like Cigna, like PNNL, that would come in and talk to the club. It always ended up with job questions like, hey, what is it going to take for me to get a job there? But they would present good material as well. Not that that's not good material, but it was a very popular series to do something like. So maybe we do that. I think, Kyle, that's a great idea. Because these big companies are looking for cybersecurity people too, obviously. So it's good for them as well to be recruiting. Yeah, great questions.
Well, and I think what's really powerful about that is it can go beyond the 2 years of CySER, is creating that network and having us working on that. And that also helps us all not to have, it helps some of the industry people, so they're not having to speak 4 different times. We're actually working on a project in the power area related that's different, but Avista gets Gonzaga, Eastern, WSU, Idaho, all asking for senior design projects and this and that. And so we're looking at how do we create a kind of a consortium. So maybe we could look at developing that in kind of exchanging ideas and things like that. The other thing that would be interesting for us, and you all may teach all 4 quarters, but also having an exchange where we could look at how we might involve some of the faculty on campus on some of our research related projects, or even interns for the students. And obviously with CySER, we've got some different internships we're working, but even some research experience for undergrads that we might be able to have on some of our campuses as access as well, or just internships for faculty or collaborative research projects where we're doing that together.
So I just wanted to add one more thing to what the student clubs and activities. I'd be happy to add one entry in the CySER website, say student club. And Eric, if you could, share information about these clubs, you have a few things that could go in there. The students that are at WSU who would want to participate in some of these would have, or other schools would have a place to go to and get that information. And so if you could, send me an email about, the clubs you have, where they meet, or some Zoom links, we could have a section in the website where this sort of information is made available.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And the other thing I think would be good is, as an electrical engineer, is cybersecurity for dummies. But really, having something that's cybersecurity for non-computer scientists. I think that would be a really interesting workshop between all our campuses that we could possibly do to look at how do we take someone that's a power engineer and talk about what they should be thinking about. This is something we're seeing a lot of in general, and cybersecurity is one of the areas of computer science where industry wants you've got the cybersecurity experts, but also having the people in the domain areas that understand enough that they can, I'm not saying this very well, maybe Asha can help me, but how do we help people that aren't cybersecurity experts be able to talk to cybersecurity, understand, to try to help on their side, and also be able to communicate that our students can communicate with the IT and cybersecurity experts when they move on to that outside of cybersecurity. So does that make sense? I'm not really saying it very well, but.
No, it makes sense. And some of these seminars will probably address issues like that. And then we've got the summer workshop that we do, where a session of it could be, an intro to cyber for everybody. And sometimes I think we all are dummies in some areas, and it's okay to make that plain and cut off that barrier that people would probably think that it is not for them. And the Cyber Basic certificate is an elevated version of that. So you could have other backgrounds, and you could still have basic cybersecurity courses taken and have this certificate. So I think they all line up in a good way. And we should think about seminars that touch on things like that every now and then.
Yeah, Eric, it looked like you were gonna, and maybe that's what you were talking about, Kyle was talking about, was your cybersecurity basics activities that you did?
I was going to talk to you, but what you said, I think, is a great request. How we handle that, I think has been discussed. So yes, I was just nodding my head.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've done similar in the past. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, we'd host a workshop on campus for kind of even senior citizens, those like you mentioned, a lot of people contact us in the community. It's like, what can we do? We did a couple outreaches in the local libraries when we were open pre-COVID, things like that. So that's a great opportunity, I think. Yeah, great idea.
Well, and I think some of these are beyond CySER, but there may be some other programs we can look at. Even, something, I know the governor has obviously his efforts in the cyber area. Matt's smiling, so but yeah, there may be some ways that we can leverage working together instead of trying to reinvent the wheel by using the CySER team for those of us in the state of Washington. But also there may be chances for us to look at NSF and other funding where we could work together on to create, to leverage what we've got here. And I think, that's a definite opportunity. So Matt, do you want to smile about the cybersecurity initiative?
Yeah, well, that, and I was on a call with the OCIO, or even Gavin Medvino with the Washington State cybersecurity office, and he was I don't know, he read your mind or something. He was talking the same thing. So yeah, that's why I laughed and smiled.
Well, you know, one of the things with the Clean Energy Fund, just to use the power example, they've done a lot related to buildings and stuff, but they haven't done a lot on workforce in that area. And, you know, it's great to have all these new facilities around the state, but we need to make sure we're training the people to operate them. And so, you know, I think finding those opportunities will be very important. And there's so much, the cyber physical is so integrated now that it's not, I mean, we need to get a new term that integrates cyber and physical all in one, because that's where we are now. So, you know, everybody needs to worry about the cyber nature of things, as you all know. I'm preaching to the choir here, but. So other questions or comments?
Noelle, I have to run, so I'm going to pop off. But if we need to talk offline, I can get with Matt and Eric and Asifa and things like that. So, because I can provide some information for the Cyber Club from Central as well.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I don't know if we have anyone from Montana State or Idaho on. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Deb. Talk to you later.
I know Montana State had another speaker today, an external speaker, so they weren't going to be able to make it. So, but I think that would be really, I think we have an opportunity in Washington to really leverage some of the current opportunities to look at how, since we already have this network, we can work together on that and see how, you know, what makes sense. So, and what we're already doing. And I love the idea of sharing the student organizations and being able to share activities. I put in the chat the link for the Cybersecurity University of Idaho actually speaking tomorrow. And the nice thing about COVID is we all have Zoom links for all this, and this is open. So we'll send it out. Gabriel will send it out on email, or have we already done that?
No, this one is the one that you forwarded, and I think it has gone through on Friday or last week. I don't remember the date. Is it a different one?
No. I think this is the same one.
Yeah, I think it's the same one. So it was sent out to CySER all by mail.
Oh, okay, that's right. We did it. So anyway, but I think we don't always think. I mean, I saw this and said, hey, this is cool. We should forward it to the WSU folks. But then I said, oh, well, we should forward it to everybody because they can all benefit from, you know, depending on their applications, and different people want to know different things. So. All right. Well, excellent. Eric and Matt, we appreciate you all bringing up some really good topics and sharing a little bit of the lessons learned. And I think that's what our webinar is supposed to be about. We will have one more before the end of the year. We will not do it Thanksgiving week, so we will actually skip, and we'll do it the week after that. So so it'll be 3 weeks, just because some people, we're off. You guys actually, I think, have to work Thanksgiving week. We don't teach Thanksgiving week, so on the quarters and semesters, that makes it a fun setup. But we appreciate everyone being on and look forward to those collaborations in the student groups. And thanks, Asifa, I love the idea of the student group to a student page to have that, and really, you know, we need to get the students talking, and if the faculty get out of the way, then they'll do cool things. So that'll be good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Matt and Eric.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Bye.
Well,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks.